Welcome to the Sleep Sense Show. As always, brought to you by the Sleep Sense program, where podcast listeners can get a free customized sleep plan by going to www.sleepsense.net/listen.
Hi, this is Dana. Welcome to today's show. You know, there might have been a day not that long ago where you would have been happy if your baby had just slept for 5 hours consecutively. That really would have made your day. That would have been the best that you'd had in months, most likely. However, now you've got a taste of the good life. You've been working on the Sleep Sense program with your little one, and she's sleeping better than she ever has in her life, except for one little problem. She's waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning thinking it's time to start her day. Now you have a good look at the reality of it and think, well, she slept 10 hours. I didn't hear her at all in those 10 hours. That's pretty amazing. How could I be even asking for more? But I feel you people. 5 o'clock is a very unacceptable time to start the day. Unless you have to get up for work, you don't want to get up at that hour, and I don't blame you. Even if my clock says 5:59, that is still completely unacceptable and feels so much worse than 6 o'clock. I get it. So I want to give you some tips today to help you get through this little challenge. I want to give you tips for your early riser. Now, here's some good news. Tip number 1 is, could it just be a matter of more time? So if you've just started the Sleep Sense program, let's say you're a week or two into it, this is very, very common. This is because your baby's body is learning how to consolidate nighttime sleep. They've gone from fragmented sleep to consolidated sleep. And that's a little bit misleading because there's still naturally occurring wake-ups in everybody's night, but we call it consolidated because it doesn't really require anything. The wake-ups are so brief that the baby is able to naturally fall back into her next sleep cycle, and that's what we hope for everybody. So she's learning to consolidate her nighttime sleep, and the trouble is that 10 hours feels pretty darn good, right? Again, that's the best she's had. So her body clock or her body is thinking, all right, that's enough. We can get up now. And it's causing a little bit of a premature wake up. Now, the good news is that should fade out with time. As her body gets better at consolidating sleep, it will know that 10 hours isn't great. Actually, 11 or 12 hours is going to be even better, and the baby will start sleeping until that time. So hang in there. If you're new to the game and this is just your first couple of weeks in, just give it more time. I mean, definitely celebrate the fact that she's sleeping better than she ever has. That's worth a high five. And know that with time and patience, this should wean itself out. Only if, though, and that leads me to the next tip, you have to stick to a minimum. If you allow your baby to get up at the 5 o'clock hour, you're probably going to be stuck there. And it's a body clock thing. It's just if you start following a regular schedule of getting yourself to sleep at the same time every night and waking up at the same time every morning, your body clock will just naturally fall into that rhythm. And you'll notice that, hey, I just naturally wake up at 7 o'clock every day. That's my body saying, we've regulated, everything is good. That's actually a great way to monitor your own sleep, is getting yourself onto a good schedule like that. So this is a bit of a body clock issue. So right now it's sort of at that 5 o'clock hour, but even the body knows that that's not quite enough. So if you stick to a minimum, which my recommendation is nothing before 6 a.m., and you say to that yourself and the child, hey, I get that you're awake, but we're not actually going to get up and start our day till at least 6 o'clock. Sometimes the baby will go back to sleep until 6 o'clock or even a little bit later, and sometimes they don't. And both are okay. If she does go back to sleep and sleep past 6, then great, just let her sleep. We're not going to go about waking up sleeping babies. If not, then at 6, you go in, you turn on the lights, you sing good morning, you look happy to see her, you get her up, and you go start your day. Now, one of the mistakes a lot of people make is that they'll get the baby at that 5 o'clock hour or that 5:30 hour, give her a feed, and then put her back in the crib in hopes that she'll go back to sleep for a little while longer. That can work. I'm going to say you have about a 50-50 chance that that will work. And it might work for months until you feel like, okay, I'm really over getting up at 5 even for a feeding. Even if she goes back to sleep, I'm kind of over it. And you can decide to then push to your minimum, which would be 6 a.m. or later. However, sometimes that looks like a middle of the night feed to the baby. So she doesn't really get that it's 5. So it might turn into 4:30, and then it's 4 o'clock, and then it's 3:30, then it's 3, and then you're kind of right back into a middle of the night feed. So if you're going to do that, you have to keep a very strict and close eye on it. It can't ever be before. Don't let it creep earlier. And if it starts to do that or cause other nighttime wake-ups, then you know that that's not going to work for her, and you're going to need to pull it and push through till that 6 o'clock morning. All right, so what do you do for that sort of hour where she's awake but you're hanging in there till your minimum? Sometimes at that hour, if you go in really quickly, so usually I ask you to wait 5 or 10 minutes before you go in, but at that hour, I'm going to ask you to go in right away. And you just sort of tuck her back in, and you give her back her lovey if she has one, and you tell her it's nighty-night a few times, and then you leave. Sometimes you can convince them before they really wake themselves fully to go back to sleep for another hour. It might work, it might not, but it's worth a shot. If it doesn't work, no big deal. You can just leave and check on her until 6 o'clock rolls around. And then again, you're happy to see her, turn the lights on, good morning, let's start our day. Now, another tip is to check out the environment. So when we go through our night, we spend the first part of our night doing a lot more deep sleep. And deep sleep is exactly the way it sounds. It's very deep. It's hard to wake a baby from deep sleep. It's an important function of our overall health, and lots of immune system repair goes on in stage 3. But then as those early morning hours start to creep upon us, we shift, and now we're doing quite a bit of REM sleep. And REM sleep is very light, and it's very easy to wake somebody from REM sleep. And there's a little bit of cortisol now starting to kick through your system so that when you do actually get up for your day, you feel ready. So those two things are kind of working against us at that 5 o'clock hour. So any little environmental change will most likely stimulate a wake-up. It will in all of us, but in particular babies. And I mean little people, like the furnace kicking in at 5 o'clock. That can be a loud enough change in environment to wake a baby. And now that she's awake and she's had the majority of her night's sleep, she's thinking, hey, I'm good to go. Let's get up and start this thing. And now you've got that battle to get her to stay until 6 and so on. So really monitor, listen, look. What could it be? Is it birds? Is it the garbage truck? Is it your husband getting up? Is it the neighbor's alarm clock going off? Whatever it is, you've really got to figure it out and then monitor and minimize it. So if it's birds or garbage trucks, white noise can be a good option in this case, kind of drown out or muffle those sort of sharper noises that come through that can wake people. Yeah, I used to say to my husband when he'd get up to go to the gym early, I was like, you can't even brush your teeth. You can't go to the bathroom, nothing. You literally have to get up and fly out of this house silently so that you don't wake up that child. So really have a good hard look at what could it possibly be. The littlest change in sunlight as well, or darkness level, will also stimulate a wake up. And I mean subtle, tiny little changes in lighting will stimulate a wake up. So if it's summer months, the sun starts to come up at 5, that is most likely what's happening here. And you're going to need to, barricade that room, get it as dark as you can, hang blankets, tape them to the wall. Doesn't matter. It doesn't have to look pretty, but it has to stay dark. Or you're going to face that same challenge day after day. Then it's important to look at what happens after you get the baby up. Sometimes because she's been awake since 5, it's tempting to shoot for a really early nap. She could be back in bed by 7 a.m. If she's been up at 5. And I get why people do that, because you don't want to make her overtired. That'll really make everything worse. I get that. But if you put her for her first nap too early, again, it can kind of just perpetuate this vicious cycle of waking up prematurely, getting up for an hour and a half, seeming tired, going back to bed at 7 to basically finish the night. It's not even really a nap, it's finishing off the night. So hang in there. Try to get her to her normal nap time, or for as long as she can stay awake at other times during the day. Yes, she'll be a little sleepy to start her day, but push through that. A gentle push is okay if it means that we're going to help get this body clock into better alignment with a better wake-up time. It's fine, okay? So give that a shot. And everything that you do around sleep, and I hope you've learned this lesson already, takes time. So don't just try it one day and it didn't work and give up on it. Any kind of sleep change is a couple of weeks at minimum before you can really evaluate if something's working. So keep it up. And eventually, hopefully, her body will come around and start sleeping a little later into the morning. The last tip I'm going to leave you with is what could she be so excited about that she's waking up too early? And here's the most common two. One is a trip to mommy's bed, right? That is a very exciting thing for a lot of babies. And so they wake up prematurely because they're excited about that happening. They're really, they've waited all night. They can't hardly wait. They're waking up at 5 because they know, yes, I'm going to mom's bed. And then you go get her and you bring her into her bed, and maybe she has a feed and goes back to sleep for a little while. And that is a lovely experience for her, but that is why she's waking up too soon. So again, in that case, you've got to stick to your minimum, get her up, and start the day. No more morning cuddles in bed. Not that you can't come back to that. Like, let's say you get this problem solved and 6 months down the road, you want to just have a little bit of lay down time together for that morning. Not for the fact of going back to sleep, though. You've got to erase that from your mind. That can't ever happen. Nope, not ever again. No. But you could bring her in and just have a cuddle time, right? I used to, every morning, all 3 of the kids would come in. We'd have a little 10-minute morning cuddle, and then we'd all get up and start our day. And that's fine if that's all that's happening there. But that's got to be down the road. We've got to break this idea that she's going to have this lovely mommy time in bed to break that cycle of getting up too early, okay? Another popular reason to wake up early is because they're going to be nursed. Now, this could be, we're not talking here about, are you giving night feeds, not night feeds? That's a whole other podcast. But if let's say you've been breaking the cycle of feeding in the night, or she's been sleeping right through the night until this 5 o'clock hour, she could be so excited about getting that breastfeed that is why she's waking up so early. So if you feel like that might be the case, like if she's clawing at your shirt before you even get her out of the crib, then I would say move to breakfast instead. If she's old enough to be on solids, go, and she's going to grumble about this a little bit, but try to delay that breastfeeding session even a little bit, even 5 or 10 minutes to start with. If we can just build a little distance between I get up in the morning, I get fed, I get a breastfeed, that can help sort of tell her that, you know what, it's not really worth getting up too early for because it doesn't really happen right away and the connection has been broken. So give that a shot if you're stuck there. So those are my 5 favorite tips for early morning wakers. But here's my last little nugget of wisdom for you. Some babies are just early risers. They just are. And you can fight against it, and you can try all these tricks, and you can, rage and beat your head against the brick wall all you like. But it doesn't change. I had a great friend who this was the case. We tried every trick in the book to get this little person sleeping later, and he just wouldn't. And we had to accept it at that point and say, you know what, this isn't forever. This is just for now. And it's better to just go with it and plan her schedule a bit better so that she was getting to bed earlier and not feeling so shattered by having to get up at that hour every day. And we just had to work with it, right? I mean, the good news is he's sleeping a 10-hour night. The bad news is it's 5 o'clock wake up. But it didn't last. I mean, we're still friends, and I can tell you, now it's noon before this 15-year-old is climbing out of bed. So it doesn't last forever. Once he started school, it kind of all worked itself out eventually. But he just really, he wasn't budging on it. And at some point, you have to have some acceptance around certain facts of life. All right, thanks so much for listening today, everybody. Sleep well.
Thanks so much for listening. For more great tips on helping your child sleep through the night, remember to subscribe, rate, and review the show on iTunes or Stitcher, and never miss an episode.